Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, everybody. At the beginning of our program, as always, the dock becomes a beef box, and people with gripes are asked to come up, state their names, and state their gripes. State your name, please.
Mrs. Martha Elliott.
Your gripe?
There is a television commercial that's out at this time that I find personally offensive, and I'd like to register a big, strong gripe about it. There is a well-known ladies' hair coloring has came out with a men's hair coloring, and perhaps you've seen the commercial. It shows a man with one half of his face mask, and it shows him all gray, and then it shows him the other side of his face, and it's mask and he's dyed, and then at the very end of the commercial he comes off and he takes the mask away. One side is white, one side is dyed, and he says, "Don't be silly like me, dye all of your hair." I find that personally offensive because I happen to have a natural white streak in my hair. My father had it, my grandfather had it, and I have sons that have it. Now, I don't think that's very nice of them to get out there and talk about my hair like that.
You know, I wish to heaven I had these kinds of problems. Is that really a gripe? Is that the thing that really bothers you the most?
I find it offensive,
You mean
yes.
the people
No,
saying,
I'm
does
not
she or
gonna...
doesn't she? Is that what bothers you?
No, I have
do
learned
you?
to live with that.
What's that?
I have learned to live with that. As a child, I grew up and I had all that to contend with.
You mean that's
being
natural,
different.
just the way it came out?
It is natural. I have children that have it. I have a son in the audience who has it.
Turn around. Let's see the back part of it.
Oh, it's gray.
It is just to one side, isn't it?
Yes, it goes in my eyebrows. In fact, I've been examined to see if it goes clear. Actually, the medical term on a... All right.
I don't think we have to pursue the medical aspects of this. I think we can talk about your hair without being anatomical, don't you?
Well, actually, I'm a partial albino, Mr. Pyne.
I see.
I think that's better than being all the way.
A partial albino.
Yes.
Aren't your eyes supposed to be a certain color?
No, my eyes are green, if that has anything to do with it. But the pigmentation does not extend down on the eyes. I do have a skin problem with it.
In other words, you are one of these rare people, if you were a full albino,
I wouldn't have any coloring.
You could be one of the few white people in America.
Yes.
Right? Really?
Yes.
Because you would lack pigmentation beneath the skin totally.
Yes.
Then you couldn't go out in the sun or without protection.
I'm very susceptible to the sun.
Well, your hair looks very nice. I don't know what you're bugged about.
Well, this darn commercial, the guy says it looks silly. I had a man come up to me once in the store.
Now, wait a minute. You said it was a commercial about a man. I guess he did look silly with this side one thing and this side something else.
Well,
But
it looks just like I look when I look in the mirror.
But women go and pay to have
done
what you...
Well, I don't.
No, but I say they do.
Well, if they can afford it, fine. But I don't do anything like that.
Well, what do you think we ought to do about it?
I don't know. I will not.
Dye your hair, they said.
I refuse to. I will not.
Don't start picking on my audience.
Well, make them shut up. I'm not going to dye my hair. I don't tell them to dye their hair.
Why don't you?
I don't tell them to wear green pajamas or anything.
Why don't you...
Well, then, would you like to get up here? It's open to you.
You better keep in mind this is not an audience, this is a jury. Well, if you don't like the diet, would you consider cutting off the part that offends you?
Why? It doesn't offend me. The commercial offends me. I'd like for them to cut the commercial off.
Well, have you tried turning that little knob on your set?
Yes, I do. But that doesn't stop it from going all over the country.
Well, I really don't think that you look bad at all, and I wouldn't worry about it if I were you. I really wouldn't.
Thank you.
Right. Happy days. Man, I wish that was a problem. I wish that was the only problem in the world, don't you, huh? All the things that are going on. I'd like you to meet our first guest of the evening, who won't be a stranger to you. Seated here with me now is one of the most controversial figures in America. James Meredith has probably created as much stir in the civil rights movement as anyone in the country. As you know, he's been shot, applauded, criticized, and accused of being a loner in a movement made up of organized groups. One thing is sure, Jim Meredith does exactly what Meredith wants to do about anything and about everything, apparently. Is that about the size of it?
Well, I don't know. I don't think I do what I want to do about anything.
When you were in the middle of that march and you got hurt and you went away for a while and you came back, I was amazed to see that you had had a falling out, at least temporarily, with your leader, Martin Luther King. At least to the point where, according to the paper, if they were quoting you right, you shoved some Martin Luther King lieutenants. True or false?
Well,
You shove them away from you as they try to walk alongside you? Physically?
No, I don't know if they were his lieutenants or not.
Well, these were representatives, shall we say, of King. They identify you, did they identify themselves to you as lieutenants of King or as representatives of King who wanted to talk with you and walk along with you, and did you push them out of the way at that time? I mean, was the paper writing it correctly or not? That's what I'm trying to find out.
Yes, that did occur. That happened.
Well, were you just bugged with the heat, or were you bugged with King's tactics, or these people in particular, or what was the cause of that? Because
well,
it was
these people in particular.
Without regard to Martin Luther King, because later you did meet with him.
Oh, yes.
And you apparently had a satisfactory, friendly meeting.
Yes, quite satisfactory, I think.
Roy Wilkins says of you, quote, James Meredith is a proud man who has supreme confidence in James Meredith. Is that his polite way of calling you an egotist?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if he has to be polite. He's not always polite. I imagine if he wanted to say something, he would.
Well, I think he's considered to be the diplomat in the Negro movement, sometimes to his detriment, because some of the young Turks call him an Uncle Tom. Where do you put Roy Wilkins in the spectrum of the Negro movement?
Well, Roy Wilkins is a Negro. He's an older man. He must be at least 60.
What does that mean? He's over the hill?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how I would categorize him, his position. He's with the NAACP. I'm not quite sure what his authoritative position is with the NAACP.
You're not?
No, I'm not.
You mean what the people think it is, or what his title is, or what?
Oh, I know what his title is, Executive Director.
You think it might be a front?
Well, it's certainly a misnomer. I often see him listed as the head of the NAACP. Of course, the head is Kivy Kaplan, a good friend of mine.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about the shooting. I guess you've talked about it enough, but I'd like to hear about it again. Can you show me where on your head you received some pellets?
Well, the hair's grown back now.
In the back of your head?
Yes, all over the back of my head.
Did you go right out, or did you stay conscious at the time?
Well, I think I remained conscious the whole time.
George S. Schuyler. Recognize the name?
Schuyler.
Schuyler, editor and reporter for Negro newspapers for over 40 years. I want to quote what he says and have you comment on it. He says, quote, allegedly the purpose of the march, meaning your march, was to stimulate Negro voter registration by demonstrating that there was nothing to fear. Correct so far?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. He goes on, thousands of colored and white Mississippians walk or ride along the public roads daily without fear of anything except being run over. But Meredith's journey was no innocent, quixotic trek. It was calculated, planned, and doubtless financed by the same agitational elements that organized, trained, and commanded the operatives of the Conference of Federated Organizations, known as COFO, who invaded Mississippi for the long, hot summer of 1964. That's in his syndicated column, The Register of 6/14/66.
Well, if I recognize that name, this is the same fellow that speaks for the John Burke Society and other right-wing groups. I'm pretty sure that's the same name.
Well, assuming that he is, or assuming that he isn't for the moment, what about the statement here? Is any part of it true beyond the business of your trying to get people not to fear anything? Is it true, for example, that Negroes and whites go along those roads without fear of anything except getting run over?
I don't think that that we have to. There certainly was something that this country was interested in along those roads. It was something that the people in Mississippi was interested in, and I don't believe that you can fool anybody or anything long. Anywhere you find an interest in if it's fear, then it's must be basic. There has to be something to cause the interest.
We'll be back with James Meredith after these words from the sponsor. Stand by. Mr. Meredith, are you a revolutionary?
Well, I don't know. It's the first time I heard that word. I don't know what you mean by that.
Are you dedicated to the violent overthrow of this government?
Oh, that's what you mean. Well,
That's one of the meanings of a revolutionary. There are many. I want to know about that one.
well, I don't see why there'd be anything to gain by that.
You don't? Then why did you say, sir, and these are your words, American Negroes have no choice but to seek the overthrow of the U.S. government if they cannot win equality under it?
I never made any such statement
Sir,
as that.
you made that statement in Khartoum, the Sudan.
No, I didn't make that statement. Some writer from the Los Angeles Times made that statement.
The Los Angeles Times
and,
misquoted you.
No, they lied.
They lied.
I made exactly the same speech at Indiana University, word for word. And no one even commented on it.
Well, now, how could that be a Los Angeles Times lie when it would have to have been a wire story?
Well,
One of the press services
the
would
way
have...
I saw it, it read
Did the LA Times have anybody with you in the Sudan?
Apparently they did, because it was a Los Angeles correspondent special or something like that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I have some of the Times articles here. I don't know offhand which one it is, but we'll look around for it as we go along, and maybe I can find it during one of the breaks. Have you called for removal of the jury trial requirement from the Bill of Rights, at least for Negroes, as a basic step toward equality?
As long as we have the jury system in this country, there can be no justice, no equal justice before the law.
What would you replace the jury system with?
Well...
What'd you have
with
in mind?
Judges.
Judges.
Judges that
Any particular color judges?
well, I think they should be qualified. I think should be picked on a basis other than political.
You don't think then that a man should be tried before a jury of his peers?
Well, if this were the case, but a man is not tried before his peers.
Well,
and
supposing then that where a Negro was involved, they changed the law to state that one half of the jury must be Negro. Would you then be in favor of retaining the Negro?
I'm not interested in
the jury?
Negro jurors are just as bigoted and capable of being as white.
You mean that when a man gets on a jury, something happens to his personality, and even if he's a liberal, he becomes a bigot?
Well, I know this. I know that in the history of the South, in the history of Mississippi, there's never been a case where a Negro has been accused of a crime against a white where he received fair treatment. There's never been a case of a white man being given justice, a just punishment for a crime against a Negro. Now, I know that, and I know
that's in
that...
the South.
That's
not true all over the country, though, is it?
It's not restricted to the South.
But it's not, you couldn't make the same statement about the country, could you?
You could, by and large. You could make it about Los Angeles. You could make it about any city.
About any city in the United States? That
Just
no
about.
white man has ever been executed for the murder of a Negro?
No, I didn't say that.
What are you saying?
I said just punishment. And this is the thing that we have to be concerned about.
Well, what do you mean by just punishment? Wouldn't that be whatever the jury decided?
Just punishment is, we say in Mississippi, if a Negro kills a white, if it was second-degree murder, it's 15 to 20-year sentence. That's what he should get. If a white kills a Negro in first degree, that's a death penalty. That's what he should get. That's what I mean by just punishment.
All right. Have you said this, and here's another quote, on the other side of the sword, just as the law always works against the Negro, it always works in favor of the white man.
That's absolutely the case.
Okay, that's true. Now, don't you think that you're being a little bit ungrateful when you consider what this country did and what we all went through to send you into college? Think that one over? I mean, I remember the troops down there. I remember hearing what it was costing for one man to go to college. I mean, you could have gone to probably any college in the North and been accepted, assuming that you were up to par on their standards of scholarship. But you wanted to go there, and you had the right to go there. And this white man supreme type government that we have saw to it that you went there. And incidentally, after you finally got in there and things settled down, you quit.
I think you got the wrong man.
I have the wrong man.
I'm pretty sure you got the wrong man.
Did you quit?
Well, I don't know what you call quit.
Did you leave school?
Well, I left after I got my degree. I don't know...
At that school?
I don't know how long you wanted me to go.
Did you get your degree from that school?
From the University of Mississippi, yes.
At Oxford?
At Oxford.
How long did you spend there?
1 year.
How could you get a degree in 1 year?
I guess I'm smart.
What, were you a chiropractor? No, I mean, seriously, how could you get a degree in 1 year?
Well...
Think that one over?
I don't know, maybe they wanted to get me out of there.
No, seriously, I'm asked, don't you think, if it's true that, as you say, that justice in this country always works in favor of the white man, that white justice bent over backwards to see to it that you got into a school that didn't want you?
Well, I don't want white justice bent anyway. I want justice, equal justice.
No, but I'm just using that phrase because you've used it. In other words, you say on the other side of the sword. But here was a case where 180 million Americans, as opposed to 20 million Negroes, decided that whatever amount of white people down there didn't want you in that school, they should not prevail against the United States guarantee of your safety and civil rights.
Well, when you make a statement like that, you're leaving me out, and I can't ever be left out.
How am I leaving you out?
Well, you're saying that that you have the decision over my life, and no one has that. I mean,
you made the decision. James Meredith, you decided to go to that school.
I'm glad you're recognizing that fact.
Well, but you decided to go to that school, but you couldn't have done anything about it if the law hadn't seen to it that you did get in there.
I don't feel quite as helpless as you seem to think I do.
Well, now, what would you have done? Would you have walked up there and knocked down 4 or 5 people and sat down at your desk, or how would you have accomplished it?
Well, I always think there's a way, and I keep trying. I think there's a way that we're going to rid this whole country of white supremacy, and it's...
There's a way that you're trying to weasel out of my question, and I'm aware of the way, and I want to bring you back to that way. Now, isn't it true that an awful lot of white people worked awfully hard to get you into college? Is that true, or isn't it? A lot more than worked against you.
Well, you're asking a question now that...
Were your civil rights protected by the federal government? That's right. That's exactly how I feel about it. How do you feel about it? Well, if they weren't, tell me, and then tell me, please, why we paid all those salaries of all those troops that were down there all that time. Do you remember the figures? They were published. You must have kind of memorized them.
Yeah, but I remember other figures. I remember 400 years of Negroes being denied. I remember...
well, James Meredith, I'm not going to dispute that, and if you want to, I'll give you 1,000 years of denial by your own tribes throughout Africa, if you want that. You know, I mean, we don't want to get into all that.
Well, I tell you what, if you think I'm going to pat you on your back, you and all the rest of them, I'm not going to do it.
Not me, or not all the rest of them, but I'm saying, where is your pride in a government that spent more to keep you in there? They could have built a college and put you in there alone for the money they spent. Isn't that true? What did it cost? Do you recall what it cost?
If it is, you say it. I'm not going to say it.
Yeah, all right. What did it cost?
I don't know and don't really care. I know what it cost.
You must have read what it cost. You must have had some idea what it cost.
Look, you know how many Negroes die every year in Mississippi because they don't get proper health and care of their health and proper food, proper shelter?
Probably quite a few.
That's right, quite a few.
You know how many white people die because of the same thing?
I don't know, probably quite a few.
All right, now, quite a few.
Well, now, my interest...
So what did we just prove by that, and what has that got to do with the fact that Uncle Sam backed you up, a lone man, one individual?
My interest is in no one dying because they don't get proper health.
Fine, that'd be good. That'd be good.
See? And look, I know out in California they got a lot of people that think like the questions you asked me. Now, this country in California is a good example. It's based on the doctrine of white supremacy. Now, if you continue to live by that system, I believe that we all may someday be playing second fiddle to maybe Red China. Now, if you choose that way, it's all right. I think the best thing for this country to do is to really put into practice its
if they didn't put it into practice,
policies, claim policies of equal equality, of equal justice before the law, and I think that we may find ourselves all wishing we had taken a different position in the years to come.
Are you making a threat?
A threat to who?
To the country?
Any threat I make to you, I'm making to myself.
To the country? Are you threatening the country?
That's right, if you want to take it as that.
Yeah.
If this country does not implement the ideals that we claim to live by, of equality, of justice before the law, I think we all might be playing second fiddle to somebody else.
Well, I think we got a hell of a start when we sent you to college. I'm just sorry you didn't stay in. We'll be back to you, James Meredith, after these words. Stand by. I think we'll go no farther until we show that James Meredith has written a book called 3 Years in Mississippi. He said to me, how come you didn't show the book yet? So there it is. Get a good look at it. 3 Years in Mississippi. Although it perhaps covers a lifetime in one way or another.
Well,
Medgar Evers' brother seems to think that you're some kind of a publicity hound.
Charles Evers?
Yes.
I've never known him to say any such thing as that.
Well, let me tell you what he said, and I watched him on TV, so this won't be the L.A. Times saying bad things about you. This is going to be what he said. He said, well, all these marchers have marched through and they're gone, and all the television cameras have left, and everything else. He said, the Negro will still be struggling for his right to vote, et cetera, et cetera. He said, we don't need people to run marches and things like that and to pose in front of the camera and that kind of thing. He said, what we need are people to come down here and go back in the woods and register people. He said, when all's said and done, nothing's being done for the poor Negro in my neighborhood.
Well, first place, he doesn't live in a poor neighborhood. But Charles Evers is a very good friend of mine, not as good a friend as his brother was. But, and he came to see me in the hospital. He assured me that these rumors that I'd hear about what things he said, that it was not true.
Well, you are looking at someone right now who saw him say that on television.
Yeah,
this
I know, but
guarantee
then
you.
I talked to him just about 3 days ago, and he assured me that he would cooperate in Mississippi with any further program wholeheartedly, and I believe him. Now, a lot of people don't understand Charles Evers. Charles Evers is the brother of Medgar Evers, who was killed. And he's a man that he speaks out, and he says a lot of things. And if you don't know him well, you can misunderstand him very much.
Oh, you think that was my trouble, not knowing him well?
Well, I think so, because if Charles just says a lot of things.
But you know what he said to me made a lot of sense?
What was that?
About the television cameras and the publicity. Made a lot of sense. You know, you talk about white supremacy and everything. Look at you. We flew you out here, put you up at the plush Knickerbocker. You're going to Disneyland tomorrow. That's a far cry from slavery, isn't it?
But now you got to tell the whole rest of the story. You got to tell him how hard you had to work to get me to agree to this.
Did I ever talk to you?
Well, but your folks did. And
I don't have any relatives. I don't have any relatives working on this show.
Now,
no, that's not the point. The point is that this can't be too much of a white supremacy deal. I recall only two other occasions.
You're talking about.
Two other occasions when people have been flown out here for the show. Madeline Murray was one.
Look.
And the other was
look,
Mrs. Oswald.
I think you misunderstand me on the point of white supremacy. Now.
Tell me about it.
You probably saw in Canton, Mississippi, heard, where I went in and talked to the sheriff, and the sheriff came out, and for the first time in history, offered full protection to the Negro unconditionally. Now, I'm not going to say too much about what we talked about in there.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing we talked about was the problem and the cause. And I said to this sheriff that I know that you have no more to do with the position that you hold in this struggle than I do. You on one side because you were born white, I'm on the other side because I'm born Negro. You have no more responsibility for the condition as it exists. Now, we both have responsibility to correct it. Now, I'm not saying that every white in this country is now himself an active white supremacist. I'm saying that the base upon which we are built is that. And I know that a lot of people don't like the system. But the thing is, we have it. And
we're not the only ones who have it, are we?
No, no.
The British have it.
Right. The whole Western civilization has it. And maybe at some point in history it might have been good. I don't know.
Africa has it.
Oh, definitely Africa has it. Africa is a part of Western civilization.
Man told me, a lady, as a matter of fact, a documentary film person, Jerry Tully, who goes over there and makes African films and so forth, as a completely neutral person, told me that in order to get people to work in the mines, various tribes have to be brought in with time spaces in between, otherwise they'd attack each other.
I know that, well, white supremacy is definitely the rule in Africa.
You're doing pretty good for a man with 1 year of college. Just got back from Africa, wrote a book, going to Disneyland tomorrow.
Well, I've been to Disneyland before, too.
So how come you're going back?
Well, I haven't I'm taking my boy.
You going to march on him?
I'm taking my boy and my wife.
There's a man out here who's coming on later as a guest who claims that you were a communist trained in Ghana.
Yeah, well, this gentleman asked me a few minutes ago, and I wondered why he did it, how long I'd stayed in Ghana, and he looked surprised when I told him I hadn't spent any time in Ghana.
We asked him to come up because he...
that must sort of foul up his program.
Well, I don't think his program is based on you, but he does have certain positions that are opposite to you. So we asked him to come up, and instead of having two separate guesting situations, why not just have them both up here at the same time? He said he wouldn't sit in the same room with you.
Well, he sat in the same room because we talked for a long time just a few minutes ago.
So I understand. I guess he won't sit in the same room if you're on TV.
Well, I guess maybe that's a different thing.
A lot of people are waiting to stand in the dock and to ask you questions. Do you mind if they do it?
Well, of course not, but they can probably get a better answer if they read my book.
A lot of them are going to... Yes, 3 years in Mississippi.
I didn't work 2.5 years writing that book just for people to come ask me questions.
Well, you know, we have an investment in you. Each one of the people sitting out there, and who knows how many people watching at home, all chipped in to send you to college. And you only stayed 1 year.
No, let me tell you something.
That's the most expensive scholarship this country's ever given.
Well, I would be happy if they'd given it to me, but...
it would have been cheaper to buy you a little university of your own, I think. But let's see what the people in the dock have to say here. Would you state your name?
UCLA.
I can't hear.
He can't hear you. Speak a little louder.
My name is Michelle Cooper-Smith, and I'm a student at UCLA. I have 4 points I'd like to ask you.
Speak up now.
Okay, first of all, to me, you have only made one definite statement, and that's when you said you only want equal justice. You seem to preface all your statements with, I think. And that, I think you should make a more definite statement.
You never been on the Joe Pyne show?
I watched it, and I know that's what happens, but it seems that you could get more sympathy or more help if you said, this is the way I feel, instead of I think. Okay, secondly, in your, this judge system you're setting up, I'd like to ask a question. Who picks the judges, and how are they picked? Aren't you going to run into a problem the same as you do with the jury as to who and how they're picked?
Well, I think we do a pretty good job on our Supreme Court.
That's the kind of system you want to set up?
I forgot you people out here don't like Warren, but well, some of us like him. We think he's a good man.
It figures.
Okay. Now then, aren't I correct? Didn't you transfer to another school after a year at Mississippi? I seem to remember reading about it.
That's
No,
a
I
touchy
didn't.
point with you. Why do you hesitate? That's a very touchy thing with you. Is that your Achilles heel? Have we discovered the James Meredith skeleton in the castle?
Well, I don't know. It just shows that you all didn't keep up with me as closely as you think.
Well, you were hiding for a while. You know that.
Well, I don't know. The Los Angeles Times found me.
There we go again. We'll be back and have you comment on that after these words. Stand by. We'll be right back. State your name, sir.
My name is Lou Gothard, and I had a question I'd like to pose, which maybe either Mr. Pyne or Mr. Meredith could answer. We've had a lot of questions in national press and a lot of problems posed about the concept or the idea of black power. And I think that one of the things that your march, or whoever's march it turned out to be, brought up was the question of what the heck is black power. I'd like to pose the question, what is white power?
I think if there is such a thing as white power, it must be a fairly decent power if indeed the Civil Rights Act of, well, before that, let's go back to 1954 when there was no marching, appreciably. There was no street kind of demonstration going on. It was all due process, and the Supreme Court finally handed down a decision which was subsequently tested and so forth, all if we are to agree that it was the white man's law under the white man's law. And the end result was that they said separate but equal facilities, by the very nature of their separation, negated their equality, and from now on, the Supreme Court says, we will implement, and we're urging all states to use all haste, although some have dragged their feet and kicked and screamed, tried not. The point was the federal government spoke, and that's why, one of the reasons why this man went to college. You say your name is Lou Gothard.
That's right.
And as you stand there and talk with me, you seem to be a very rational, normal, peaceable, if I may use that word, human being. But aren't you the same Lou Gothard who attempted to agitate some students at Pasadena School, John Muir High School in Pasadena?
What do you mean by agitate, Mr. Pyne?
Attempt to incite them to riot?
Are you accusing me?
No, I'm asking you.
Are
I'm
you
asking you.
accusing me
No,
of
I'm asking
inciting
you.
to riot?
I'm asking you. Can you answer that, yes or no?
Yes, I can answer it no. What does this have to do with the issue, though?
I don't know. I'm just trying to connect. I don't understand. You look so calm and
Well, I
collected.
feel pretty calm. How do you feel?
Yeah. It's hard for me to picture you as a guy who would do these things. Getting back to this business of black power, are you interested in having some?
No, I'm not. I'm interested in having a community which does have some, which can be expressed in some ways that make some differences in the community.
Now, where do you see a man like our guest as far as the black power structure could be concerned?
I think that Mr. Meredith has had made some very valuable kinds of contributions in this question, because he raises the question of the Bible or the gun. Now, as far as I'm concerned, it's not a question of the Bible or the gun. It's a question of what's in between the Bible and the gun, and if it is effectiveness for the black community, then I think there are some real gains to be made in the black community.
All right, thank you. Let's have the next man come up, please. State your name.
My name is Mwokedi Okoye.
And where are you from?
I'm from Nigeria.
Nigeria. Speak a little louder, would you, please?
Yeah, I have some questions for you, Mr. Pyne.
Yes.
You quite believe America is a prosperous nation.
I don't quite understand what you're saying.
So you quite believe that America is a prosperous nation?
Prosperous nation.
A prosperous nation?
Prosperous nation.
Yes, I think it's a prosperous nation.
Yeah, and you believe it's known all over the world?
I'm sure of it.
Yeah. Don't you think
They
that...
know us by our loans.
Yeah. Don't you think that... Don't you think that it's because of the position of America to the outside world, that's why the federal government has hastened up to take action to prevent the molestation of the Negroes in America?
I think that the world expects more of us than they do of any other part of the world.
Yeah, don't you think that is the reason?
Yes.
Don't you think it's being inhuman? Because that action ought to have started the very moment this nation started. In the sense that America is a multiracial society. So any action that would be taken the very right moment that the nation started.
I don't quite understand what you're saying. Do you understand what he means?
Yes, I think I do.
Go ahead.
I think he's saying that instead of trying to correct these problems now, they should have been started in the beginning. Is that,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You come from Africa.
Yeah.
All right. I want to throw it right back on you. Why didn't justice prevail back in Africa? In other words, why did your relatives capture James Meredith's relatives and sell them to white slave traders?
Yeah, very good. That's very good.
Thank you. I'm glad
I have
you
something.
I mean,
Now, yeah.
depending on how far back you want to go in history, we can get ridiculous about this.
Yeah,
right?
okay. Now, you quite believe there was slavery throughout the world?
Yes, still is, I understand, in Saudi Arabia.
The Saudi Arabia, okay. Now, this I have to tell you especially about my forefathers who sold their children into slavery. Now, it's very cheap to come to somebody and say, please give me this boy to serve me. I make him all right. I give him good food, do everything for him. It was the colonial system of rule, the indirect rule, where the white man would come to Africa and rule through the chiefs. He would tell the chief, now, you are the Lord. You have everything. But inwardly, he collects the money. The chief will get the money and give to the white man. And he takes it. This is very, very clear. And it's just the same thing that happened in the case of slavery.
Well, what does that tell you about mankind?
About mankind. Now, when you talk of mankind, you're not including the black man. You are thinking of white man.
No,
when you think
I'm
of,
thinking
when you say
of
white,
mankind.
black man.
Homo sapien. We'll be back to you, sir, in just a moment. We have the sponsor interrupting us here. I'm sure he's sorry about it. You're right. James Meredith, what are your comments on what your colleague from Africa has said so far?
Well, you all have talked about quite a few things. I don't really think that there's much to be said for his position that it should have started in the beginning. Because in the beginning, we had a whole different concept. The Negroes at that time were slaves. And, of course, you really hit on a question that is a hard one to answer about Africa. And the question of why the Africans sold their brothers into slavery. And I don't know. I don't think the gentleman's facts are too good, because he speaks of colonialism. Well, actually, the slave trade was before colonialism. And it's... but I understand that problem. I think somewhere down the line, the blacks of the world are going to have to face the reality that we have no recorded glory. If we're to have a glory, we're going to have to build it. And we can't find one that exists. I've looked, that was one of the purposes of my trip to Africa. And there's no glory in either case. If it's true that the white man went to Africa and tricked the African, then it embarrasses me that my forefathers were so weak that they could be tricked. So I think when we try to find the easy answer, I think that's not the way. I think we're going to have to find the hard answer.
You have to understand that if you ask your brother to come and live with me, that's very all right. I'll say I'll be happy to have him in. Now, but you don't come in and control me. You don't come in and control my temper.
Well,
so I may get
history,
annoyed with him and molest him.
Speaking of history, the way it happened in many cases were that one tribe would capture a good portion of the other one, and it was these people they'd sell into slavery.
That's right.
The people that sold into slavery.
The ones they captured. In other words, they weren't selling the nice people that were in the same tribe.
Who were the inciters?
What's that?
Who were the inciters? Those who incited them to sell the people.
Oh, come on now.
Let me ask this question. Do you find any glory in a person that's so weak that he can be incited? Now, I don't. I don't find any glory.
Yes,
in it.
you seem to be attributing weakness to the person who's been deceived.
Yes, that's right.
Well, you have to understand that this is a natural flaw in everybody.
You know, you better be careful. He'll think you're a plant.
Look, I don't think I have to explain nothing to nobody. I'm concerned about. I've been to Africa. I love Africans. When I went on Mississippi March, I had an African ebony and ivory cane that most Americans didn't understand, but most Africans understood.
Newspapers reported it.
Yeah,
Yes.
and again, I have to ask Mr. Pyne again.
Yeah, very quickly now, because I want to change colors for a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
When you, there was a question you asked Mr. Meredith whether something, I think what he received in the South, what happened to him in the South. Then you asked him whether it was in the North. But you have to remember that when you talk about the South of America and the North, you are talking of America. And besides, a foreigner...
I don't agree with that either. When some bum won't bury a dead Vietnam hero in Alabama or Georgia, whatever it is, because of his color, that makes me just as angry as it makes you or Mr. Meredith or anybody else.
Yeah, that's what I'm
See?
saying. So it's your problem.
They don't speak for the country.
Yeah. But
Now, look, do me a favor. Let me change colors here a little bit now. Come on up here, young man.
Okay.
You've been standing there patiently. Let's hear your name, please.
Yes, the name is Raymond Schrank, and this is for Mr. Meredith.
Fine.
Now, the last couple of weeks, you've had, Mr. Pyne's had several colored leaders on his program, and I've been listening to these men, and I've been listening to you tonight. And, well, the question is, I want to know why it seems that, especially, say, as it concerns the situation in Watts and other big cities, that whenever there is racial trouble, such as the riots you've had here in Watts, that the colored leaders are continually taking the defensive on this and finding excuses for it, rather than to stand up and denounce the small minority that is causing the trouble.
Now, are you making these leaders, or did the Negroes make them leaders?
I don't know. I've heard many people say that these were self-appointed leaders.
They're described as such in the newspapers. Sometimes they're leading Negroes, sometimes they're Negro leaders.
And I think that this distinction, we're going to have to start making that distinction more clear.
What are you? Are you a Negro
I'm
leader?
neither one. I'm neither one.
Well, you were at the head of the march. Who was the leader if you weren't? You keep thinking I'm not going to ask you these questions, don't you? You keep hoping.
Well,
You can't deny that you were in a position of leadership at that time. You can't deny that. Even though Martin Luther King came along and stole your thunder a little bit. Of course,
well,
he named
no,
it the
that's
Meredith
not,
March.
That's
but
not true. That's not true.
I think he got more press than you did toward the end.
Martin Luther King is a Negro. And everything that I experience, he experiences too.
I don't believe that. I bet he doesn't experience one thing about your trip to Disneyland, for example. Either you're an individual or you're not. If he breaks his leg, you won't feel it. Have another drink. We'll be back to James Meredith. Right now, we're going to pause for these commercial words. State your name, sir.
Newton Champion.
You don't have to lean that close. Just stay right there. You're fine.
Yes, sir. I'd like to comment on a white power structure.
Okay.
Well, to me, the white power structure is the white man have everything in the country, controls everything, and the Negroes really don't have too much to say. This is, to me, what white structure is. You take, for instance, I'm an actor, but white people controls that too, and it's very hard for Negroes to be able to get anything, not unless we have to go by the white people rules and regulations.
Very hard for anybody to get a part in a picture. That's what you're talking about.
Well, this is true, but I'm talking about everything else in the United States controlled by the white people. This is the white people's structures, power structure. This is what I mean.
Well, here you are on television. How do you account for that?
Well, I'm here
Well, how do you account for that?
by the white people.
Yeah, they're not keeping you off.
No,
They're not even putting you down for talking against them. Think it over.
but there's
I mean, it's not all bad, is it?
no, it's not all bad, but
Okay.
but still the white people are in power, and we really don't have an equal say as white people do, according to the racial.
I wonder how many people sitting in our audience really think they are powerful or have power over you.
No,
Does anybody here think that they are enjoying white power? I mean, be honest if you think you are. I can't see one hand going
I would
up.
be very surprised if there's any white here that doesn't feel that way. See, there's the proof right there. 100% proof.
Well, they're just disagreeing with you. They're not marching on you.
Here we go.
What is your name, ma'am?
My name's Myra Lee, Mr. Pyne.
Yes.
I'm wondering if I can speak in half of Mr. Meredith. I'm a little disturbed. The last question that you just asked the audience about white supremacy, I'm quite sure that the audience does not feel that there is white power. But I bet you if you took a poll, you'd find a lot of discrimination. Now, I sat out in the audience.
You would under any sampling group. In other words,
Yes.
you could take, you could have this place packed with Negroes, and there would be discrimination. Everybody discriminates. When you bought that coat as opposed to a darker one or a lighter one, you discriminated in some way. When you picked your sunglasses, you chose that frame over another one. That's Freudian self-love, isn't it?
No, it is not.
It's not.
It is
Then
not.
why didn't you pick a
It
big
is
ugly
not-
pair?
It's,
Why
listen,
not?
you know, Mr. Pyne,
When this man sitting next to me picked out that suit,
you've made your point. Now, may I speak, sir?
I didn't think I made my point clear to
Yes,
you.
you
but
made
if
your
you're
point. It's
satisfied
not
I made
Freudian.
it, fine. Go ahead.
I know a little bit about Freudian, too.
I don't want to
have a
seem too
degree.
powerful here.
Mr. Pyne, I want to state first that I didn't come on this program to argue with you because too often I've heard you to tell somebody to take a walk, and I don't wish to have you tell me to take a walk. But I would...
I don't think
would-
you are the disorderly type of person who has to be told that.
No, I'm not an actor, and I'm not here to make a ham of myself. I really want to speak for Mr. Meredith because I
Think he
think
needs you
that
to speak for him?
No, now he might not need me to speak for him, but I think he does need a little defense. Now, Mr. Pyne, I know that you're catalytic, and this is your type of program.
Oh, please don't psychoanalyze me. Please don't do that.
Well, I'm not psychoanalyzing you any more than, you know,
We're
I'm
interested
the
in having people state their minds. And stop explaining yourself, stop explaining me, and make your statement. There, I won't even interrupt you. Go ahead.
I don't believe this.
Provided you don't psychoanalyze me. Go ahead.
You have needled this man from the time he sat down. You have done nothing. I don't care about the audience. No, I'm not going to take a walk until Mr. Pyne tells me to take a walk. You're not running the show. I'm surprised.
You feel that way, Mr. Meredith? That you have been picked on and abused?
May I finish the statement before he gives me the answer, please? This might have something to do with it.
Well, he's not a
Please,
ventriloquist
Mr.
dummy. He can answer for himself.
But may I finish my statement, please? I don't want to be hostile with you, Mr. Pyne, really. But you have to be to retaliate in order to get anywhere with you because you're going to tear the person in the beef box apart. Actually, you're going to tear them down. You're going to do your best to humiliate me, but I'm going to stand here and I'm going to try to
be... If there's a man standing next to you, were you humiliated in any way?
I asked him to stand here. I need his support.
Well, did I pick on you? Did I humiliate you in any way?
I'd like to get back to...
Huh?
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't.
I'd like to get back to the educational...
You can't do anything without analyzing me. I think I have given you sufficient time to make a point, whatever it is.
I'd like to get back to the educational. The educational
right
aspect.
now, I'm going to ask you to hold on a moment.
All right, sir.
If Mr. Meredith wants you to continue, then we'll continue.
Well,
Yes?
I won't be... Mr. Meredith,
Well, whatever his answer, it wasn't overwhelming in any direction.
I will not be offended if he says don't continue, but I think that I understand him. I think that you have hurt your cause today, and you have equally hurt his cause, Joe. This man showed a lot... Well, I don't care what the audience thinks. This man showed a lot of courage to go to a school where he wasn't wanted. Now, as far as the educational backing of the United States government, we should not have had to have done this. We should have had this boy go to a school anywhere he wanted to go to.
All right.
So
may I ask you not to take a walk, but to move to one side and let the gentleman standing behind you come up, please. Yes. Stand behind the mic and raise it up a little bit to suit your height, sir. Go ahead.
Well, Joe, I'd like to tell you how I
sort of volunteered to fight in the war on poverty, and somehow or another I seem to get pretty poor because of it. If you remember when the Johnson administration sent the braceros packing their bags to go back to Mexico, it was one of the primary steps in the war on poverty, because it's obvious you cannot fight poverty in this country if you have to import it up here from the Republic of Mexico, like the braceros were being brought up. And
What has this got to do with Mr. Meredith? He's never been accused of being a bracero. What has that got to do with the topic under discussion?
Well, I'm getting into that, you know, very shortly. I'm going to try to be very brief here.
Would you even get it in there shorter?
Well,
would you believe 2 seconds?
2 seconds, all right. Here were 100,000 jobs available throughout the entire Southwest. And the first thing I did, I contacted organizations on my own hook, acting on my own as a volunteer and trying to carry out what I considered Secretary Willard Wirt's program. I talked to civil rights groups in my own town of Pasadena, and oddly enough, I got very little assistance from them whatsoever. So it ended up that I went packing my bag to go up to a neighboring
Just as
county
I thought,
and work
this doesn't
on my
concern
own.
Mr. Meredith at all. All right, sir, it's been grand hearing from you. We must take up your second phase of your career some other time. Mr. Meredith, we've run out of time. I'm sorry that the extraneous matter got in there, but it's been good having you here, and you seem to be in fine fettle in spite of being shot. How many pellets did you take?
Oh, about 100, I guess.
100. We'll be back with another guest following these words from the sponsor. Stand by.